For a deeper legal analysis, I want to bring in Kim Wehle. She's a law school professor at the University of Baltimore and author of How to Read the Constitution and Why. Kim, thanks for joining us. Explain the legal process of removing President Trump through impeachment at this late point. What all would have to take place between now and January 20th?
Well, it's just like a trial in the civil system, except it happens in Congress. So there has to be articles of impeachment, which we understand a draft is circulated today. Those would have to be voted on generally by the Judiciary Committee, but my understanding is they're willing to bypass that, go right to the House. The House would vote on those almost like a grand jury, and then those articles, like an indictment, would go to the Senate for trial. Trials generally take a while. The impeachments historically have taken quite a while, but there's nothing in the Constitution that bans a fast track. So conceivably, if, as is reported, the Democrats get these articles, actually the impeachment itself, which is the indictment in the House, done this week, we could see a Senate trial pretty rapidly. The facts are not that disputed, at least in this moment, as far as what happened on Wednesday.
And what about the possibility that Nancy Cordes was discussing with me, impeaching the president after he leaves office?
That is unprecedented. But again, nothing in the actual Constitution itself that would ban that. The articles of impeachment, the impeachment process, the indictment, only takes a majority of the House of Representatives. To actually remove a president takes 2/3 of the Senate. I think the benefit to keeping it going after Mr. Trump loses power on January 20th is that there's some precedent, again, not in the Constitution, but historical precedent for issuing basically a ban on holding public office, only requiring a bare majority. So when the two new Democratic senators are sworn in, once those certifications happen in Georgia, the Democratic-led Senate would not necessarily need Republican support to basically keep, as a constitutional matter, Mr. Trump from running in 2024, which, given the chilling description from Representative Clyburn of the severe national security implications that we still are just grasping, I think is an absolutely vital shot across the bow to stop this in the future.
Yeah, I'm still sort of taking that information in as we know that a thorough investigation needs to take place. Kim, another way to remove President Trump from office is to invoke the 25th Amendment. What's the legal process for that, and who exactly would need to sign off on it? I also wonder how that process might be affected by the fact that so many members of the cabinet are acting secretaries. Does that play a role?
Yeah, so just let me clarify. I'm not suggesting there's a coup. What troubles me is that his laptop is missing. That's quite serious. As far as the 25th Amendment, the way that works under the Constitution, there's a provision that's never been utilized. Basically, the 25th Amendment says what happens if a president dies in office or if a president becomes completely incapacitated or removed from office. But there's this provision that says that a majority of his cabinet and the vice president can essentially say he's unfit for office or is unable to discharge his duties, then send a letter to the United States Congress that would immediately divest the president of his power. And then he would have an opportunity, there's kind of a bit of back and forth, to say, no, actually, I am okay, I am able to discharge the duties of my office. And then it would take 21 days for the Congress to make a decision as to which side they believe, the cabinet and the vice president, or alternatively the president. The difference between impeachment and 25th Amendment, the 25th Amendment would divest the president of his power immediately with basically the investigation after the fact. Whereas for impeachment, you have to do the investigation first through a trial, and then the removal would happen. There's one other wrinkle, and I believe Representative Jamie Raskin has introduced legislation under the Constitution. Instead of having the cabinet members make that determination, a majority, Congress can delegate to a committee the ability to make that determination. But Vice President Pence, under the Constitution, has to sign off. So without Vice President Pence's sign off on a 25th Amendment process, it cannot happen constitutionally.
Kim, just as you're discussing this, kind of trivia question almost. Would Pence then become the 46th president, either through the 25th Amendment or if the president were impeached and convicted before his term was in fact up, and then President-elect Biden become the 47th president?
I think so. Yeah, he would be the president of the United States. He'd be sworn in immediately, and he would take the reins for the remaining days, which, as Representative Clyburn indicated, is a concern in part because I think people don't necessarily realize the president is at the apex, at the top of the entire administrative bureaucracy. Every federal agency, including the Department of Energy, which controls the nuclear codes, as well as the entire federal military, as well as all federal law enforcement, FBI, CIA, DEA, with the exception of the Capitol Police, which answers to the United States Congress. Donald Trump has an extraordinary amount of sort of military / law enforcement power at his fingertips. And I think that would be the argument that, listen, all things considered, let's just avoid more of this potential meltdown in the last few days and loss of life. We've seen multiple people lose their lives this week.
I want to stick with you on this point just a little bit longer because lawmakers have discussed preventing President Trump from being able to make military orders as well as potentially blocking him from accessing nuclear launch codes. Representative Clyburn, you just heard, tells me that he is in fact genuinely concerned about this. Is the military legally required to follow President Trump's orders until the new president is sworn in? And can the president be legally blocked from nuclear launch codes without the 25th Amendment coming into play?
Well, the answer is the president legally has complete authority over the nuclear codes, but the military is forbidden from executing an unlawful order. So that is one of those sort of tricky situations where within the ranks of the U.S. military, if the president if tomorrow we were to be attacked by an adverse foreign power and President Trump were to execute an order to issue the nuclear codes, that would not be, at least off the top of my head, would not be an unlawful order. If he were to use the nuclear codes to create more mayhem, to arguably, according to critics, damage democracy. Those within the military chain of command could say, listen, sir, I need to double check that that's a legal order. I can't execute that until I'm certain that it's legal, and that could at least slow the process down. But ultimately, no, he does not need the authorization of anyone else to actually execute that.
All right, Kim Wehle, thank you.
Thank you.